Welcome to the Predictive World series, brought to you by SalesChoice, a company that specializes in ending revenue uncertainty for human advantage. I'm your host, Jen Yim. I'm the Director of Product and Marketing at SalesChoice, where we bring three offerings to market. One is Sales Insights, which helps sales professionals meet their sales plans with guided insights. Mood Insights, which helps frontline employees' voices be heard, all powered by AI. And our third offering is AI and data science as a service, designing and building and maintaining AI models with a new line of business on generative AI. Over the years, we've been hosting numerous experts and thought leaders in the field of AI and revenue growth, building a trove of podcasts, webinars, and white papers. And we invite you to go to saleschoice.com and saleschoice.com/resources to access that incredible trove. Today, I have with us Dr. Brigham Hyde, CEO of Atropos Health, and Ardy Arianpour, CEO of SEQSTER. Brigham and Ardy, welcome and pleasure to meet you both.
Thanks for having us.
Brigham, could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, Brigham Hyde. I'm the CEO, co-founder at Atropos Health. I helped spin the business out of Stanford about 3 years ago. Focused on generating high quality evidence with automation for use in care and research. My background is all in health tech and health data, having built businesses across that spectrum over the last decade. I'm a PhD by training, so started as a bench and clinical researcher, but kind of felt like data would be important in the next phase of healthcare, and been focused on that ever since.
Okay, wow. So another doctor along with our Dr. Cindy Gordon. So you told us a little bit about Atropos, but could you tell us just a little bit more?
Yeah, Atropos Health exists because of a problem we call the evidence gap. Maybe somewhat surprising, but only about 14% of daily medical decisions have high quality evidence behind them. There's a lot of good and bad reasons for that, but fundamentally, there are not enough studies, not enough clinical trials, not enough publications out there to inform every single care decision a doctor has to make. And we want more trials, of course, but in the age of real world data, there's now the opportunity to leverage that data that we built and collected to help add evidence to care and to research throughout the spectrum. Fundamentally, because of this lack of evidence, doctors have to extrapolate from imperfect studies that may have even excluded their patient or not provide direct evidence for the decision they're making. Atropos solution is all about automation. So we automate the production of evidence from high quality data. Partners like SEQSTER do great work to assemble deep patient records and data that can be used this way. And then we automate the study. And we're able to take what process normally takes weeks and months to do. It's very labor intensive to produce this type of evidence. We take it down to under a day. Because we're able to do that, that means it has utility at the point of care, and also means rapid acceleration for research, including life science partners. So we're part of the evidence revolution. We do so with great partners like SEQSTER, and are building our way towards increasing or closing that evidence gap and increasing the overall personalization of evidence for care.
Oh, that's amazing. I had no idea that so many medical decisions are made without the data. That's
it's
definitely
shocking. They call it the art of medicine, I guess.
I feel like your model should definitely be the default in that case.
We agree.
And Ardy, could you tell us a bit about your background?
Yeah, first off, thanks so much for having me here. It's so great to be here with my friend Brigham Hyde, who we're together doing so many great things, and you guys will hear all about it today. I'm Ardy Arianpour, CEO and co-founder of SEQSTER. We founded SEQSTER in 2016 on the premise of putting the patient at the center of healthcare to disrupt and break down all the data silos from your EHR data, which is your electronic healthcare records, as well as your baseline genetic data, which is your genomics DNA testing data, and bringing together your wearables, medical devices, pharmacy, claims data. We're backed by Takeda Pharmaceuticals, United Healthcare Group investors, as well as Anne Wojcicki from 23andMe. And what's so interesting with SEQSTER is we started out, for the consumer. We built this amazing consumer EMR, and then we had to pivot because of the business models that came naturally, and you'll hear about that more. But the SEQSTER operating system was built and born out of the fact of connecting the dots of data for the researcher and the patient together, creating a longitudinal health record in real time. And so that's what we've done. And in the last 20 years, being in healthcare, clinical diagnostics, digital health, I've been really fortunate to work with some of the top pharmaceutical companies. And at SEQSTER, we currently have 5 out of the top 10 pharma companies as partners, our latest being our Novartis announcement last week.
Amazing. I think you already mentioned about a bunch about SeqSTER, but is there anything else you'd like to add here?
Yeah, SeqSTER is really special because everyone is seeking health data. And so it doesn't matter if you're a pharma company, a payer, a provider, a doctor, a parent, a caregiver, everyone is seeking health data. And that's why we created SeqSTER. That's why everyone is a SeqSTER. And I'm excited to share more about that and how our enterprise operating system aggregates that disparate health data sources into a single 360-degree view of a patient in real time, solving a multitude of challenges for life sciences, patient engagement, and data interoperability.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm definitely really looking forward to the conversation. In that case, I'm going to flip it off to Dr. Cindy Gordon to start that.
Thanks, Jennifer and Ardy and Brigham. Thank you so much for joining us today. My head's spinning because I think we all recognize how fragmented the healthcare industry is, and to hear both of your value propositions and the fact that you have a vision on the health and wellness at the core, but also aggregating real-time data. And, there's so much to be done. And I think we've all been following the declining health rates, of all of our people in North America. We all thought post-COVID that we wouldn't have, I thought some of the issues might disappear, but I've been very following the anxiety rates, the increasing depression rates, obviously the increased disease factors. Obviously, we're all pretty sensitive to health and wellness. And, it is becoming one of the top board director areas of focus as well, because they're seeing their insurance claims go up year over year over year. So there's a lot of unrest, and it's wonderful to hear your entrepreneurial perspective. So what I think in some ways you've already kind of shared, both of you, your shared vision for the future of healthcare and patient care, because in many ways that's what you're doing and waking up every morning with your, your companies and your value proposition. But I wouldn't mind, Brigham, if you could start and just kind of do a look out for the sort of 5 years ahead. Let's get out of the here and now. And are we really moving the ball? Are your software solutions and infrastructures being acquired enough? Are the government procurement rules and regulations helping propel you forward? Are we going to get this right? Or is this a long journey, and it's not a marathon? It's being patient, one brick at a time. Thoughts on the future, Brigham?
Sure. I guess the vision that I think both Ardy and I are chasing is really simple in a way. It's almost not a new idea. We've all been talking about learning health systems for 40 years, honestly. But I think a lot of convergence has occurred that can allow this future to even happen now. And I would say it'll be less than 5 years, would be my view. And that vision, at least from my end, is this. When you receive care, that care should be driven by evidence that is personalized to you, meaning that there's studies being run on patients that look just like you that give you an answer, give your doctor an answer to what the evidence for care is for you. And that should not be something that takes years of research to accomplish. It should be able to happen instantly at the point of care. Very similarly, for life science companies, the long, arduous process of R&D to develop new therapies that can impact, these diseases and even rising populations that are dealing with new situations, that can be shortened dramatically by the use of real-world data and real-world evidence with automation at the center of it. And I think the goal for both of us, inform that personalization of care with great data and high quality evidence on top of that data, and simultaneously accelerate R&D through the leverage of real-world evidence, real data throughout the development process and even into launch. I won't get into the government of it all, and I'd love to pass to Ardy to share his vision. All I would say is healthcare moves slowly, like there's big rails that have to move around, but every single group in the stakeholder continuum, patients, okay, physicians and hospitals, payers, and life science and medtech companies all want more evidence for their products, for their decision-making, for their coverage. They all want it. So if we can create this explosion in high quality evidence on the back of high quality data, that really opens this up. And I think the rails are aligning to that today.
Yeah, that's really encouraging to hear, Brigham. Thank you so much. And you're right. These, the industry does not move at the clip that we'd maybe all wish, but it's really good to hear that the guardrails are being put up, but also the railways are running. And clearly, if you see that it's going to happen in less than 5 years, there's obviously a lot more efficiency.
I would just make one comment here. Use of evidence to inform all these pieces across stakeholders is not new. I mean, what do doctors do now? They go to the literature, they go to things like UpToDate, they're looking at studies. Those are often factored into guidelines or formularies or medical policies to determine what will be covered. And the process by which we produce high quality evidence and add to those elements is not new. That's existed. What is new is that we can do it quickly and at scale, and do it with transparency on the quality and appropriateness of data and analysis. That is ready right now. So what we're about to do is, through those same rails, we're about to run a whole bunch more evidence through them. Now that requires business shifts, right, and stakeholder alignments, but it's actually better for all the stakeholders, because if we're trying to make a decision for a patient, and when we go to make that decision, there's no evidence in the literature to inform this, it's all opinion and experience, right? But if there's high quality evidence, it's an easy choice. We see that over and over again across our client base. If the data is clear, the data is high quality, it's presented in a clear and methodologically sound way, we have the systems to make that decision already. We've just been taking too long to do it. That time compression is happening right now.
Yeah, thank you. The resiliency that we can have in connecting all of the dots, right? To give that extra, fuel and motion. Ardy, your perspectives on the future of healthcare and patient care, just building off of what Brigham so eloquently laid out. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Cindy, I'll echo a couple things that Brigham obviously stated. And, we have shared visions, or else we wouldn't be partners, and we wouldn't partner. We're on the same circuits, we're on the same panels, we're on the same speaking engagements. Brigham and I see each other more outside of our homes than most people do. But, SEQSTER, I would say I would start with the mission first before the vision. And I'll tell you why, because it's very personal for me. SEQSTER saved, my dad's life by running a tumor board in 6 hours and getting him into surgery, just because of the care coordination that can happen with real-time, real quality data. At SEQSTER, we're dedicated to connecting patients and researchers through high quality data and sharing that data. That data sharing is so important, right? And we want to impact patient lives on broad scale by empowering individuals with ownership and access to their health data. Brigham was talking a little bit about government. We're one of the 4 thought leaders for CMS ONC interoperability 21st Century Cures Act that came out in 2020, 4 years ago, March of 2020, right when the COVID stuff kind of happened. And before that, we never knew that SEQSTER was going to become law, right? And our vision was to integrate all health data sources in real time, creating this comprehensive, as I've stated, longitudinal patient health record. And this initiative aims to enhance health outcomes. It expedites scientific research, as Brigham stated. It facilitates drug development, right? We accelerate drug development and time to markets by placing the patient at the core of their data, Cindy. That's the key. We seek to provide individuals and their caregivers with their most valuable assets, and that's valuable health information. And so my real dream has always been to have our one-click records experience for really the world. It's not for just for healthcare. It's for every single consumer. It's for every single person that's been born. So my vision and future for healthcare is that it starts with the patient owning and controlling their data in real time, and then sharing it with their providers and being involved in healthcare to really make healthcare. I believe we have sick care right now. There is no healthcare in our country unless you're connected like me and Brigham, and you have technologies within data and AI like Brigham and I. Then you can help family members like my own father so quickly. And that's because of connections, data, technology. But really, I want that Netflix experience, that Amazon experience for all individuals across the globe. That's my vision for healthcare.
And let me just make one comment here, Cindy, just to connect why Ardy and I are partnering on this topic, okay? And democratization is a theme we both care deeply about, because I think that's how you finally make the impact we think is possible. There's two core problems, right? One is, there's a lot of healthcare data now, but it turns out high quality data that's complete and longitudinal, that has patients that look just like you, that's hard to connect to, right? And one of the things that Ardy's solution does with one-click record, again, we can compile that almost instantly, right? Now, and that wasn't possible even, 5 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, okay? So if I got a question from a point of care where they were asking me, hey, for a patient that looks like this, what's the best treatment choice, okay? That usually starts with, well, where are we going to get the data from? Right. And having partners like Ardy's, where instantly we can assemble those data sets, not only great amounts of data, but great depth of data that allow us to do the types of analyses we need to do. So for us, it's so logical to want to connect to a solution that can assemble that great data, because that's problem one. Problem two is, okay, I've got the data. Now, how do I convert it to high quality evidence that I could trust to inform a care decision? And that's where we step in. So it's the marriage of, again, automation to assemble the right data, and then automation in producing high quality evidence transparently atop that. That combination is why we're here together.
Yeah. And that combination did not exist, and it hasn't existed. And it's now, turnkey, because what Brigham and his team have innovated and what my team and I have innovated over the past 8+ years. There's no magic to it. I think we were on another interview before. The magic, Brigham said it before, it's just hard work, Cindy.
Yeah.
Both our teams have done hard work. And before this, in our past lives, Brigham and I worked really hard to get to where we are, to understand not only the landscape of healthcare, but also how do you plug in digital health with not just the patient, but the researcher? How do you layer in all these, great things on AI and LLMs? You need to have data. And that's why the synergistic partnership between Atropos and SEQSTER is really one of a kind.
Yeah, it's very powerful. I'm just going to kind of echo back some of your comments. Ardy, as your big reach vision is very inspiring in the sense of universal patient intelligence in real time. And the key point, Brigham, is you're really highlighting is that we can do it now because of the advancements in data sciences, and also, the compression, and also the AI overlays. I think you both have highlighted the challenges and problems, through the discourse. I don't think we need to dive into that too much more, but I'd love to get your perspectives, and maybe Ardy, start with you on the competitive landscape. Obviously, Brigham underscored this isn't new. We've got access. Though, you were bringing two capabilities together to bring a better value proposition. Who else are you guys monitoring that you think, with your 1 + 1 = 3 solution versus the other players? Who do you watch? Who do you benchmark? who do you, think is getting this right or wrong? But any comments that you're comfortable to share on the competitive landscape, it's always good to hear how you're differentiating yourself. I certainly sense the passion, because I can only imagine your customers are very well served from both of your offerings and your combined offerings, because you just really resonate the brands so
Yeah,
well.
look,
Ardy, do you want to do this? I'll talk about your competitors. You talk about mine. Just how we saw each other as partners. I think that's actually maybe interesting.
yeah, look, we could definitely do that. I think, look, I'm happy to do that. Do you want to start first?
Yeah, I'd just tell you why select SeQSTER as a partner. I think it speaks to the value that they've created. There's been registries that have been around for, I don't know, 50 years. Okay. And a registry is a really important thing because we're consenting a patient in, they're agreeing to be part of it. They're then contributing data to that. It has the additional advantage in research of being able to collect very specific information from a patient. Maybe you want a patient-reported outcome, like, hey, how did you feel today? How did you fill out in the symptom detail? And that's not in EHR, right? So there's additional information you're gathering here. There's also, as that world has evolved, right, all these disparate sources that exist in the US. We don't have a central EMR. We don't have a central health system. There are many, many pipes to build. And I personally, given my background, know just how hard it is to acquire and link those things. And the thing that impressed me so much about what SeQSTER is, as we go back to the magic, is the hard work of actually building the pipes, okay? Building the pipes is incredibly difficult. And, being able to first to do that and include things like genomics information, and as that's scaled and government regulation has come to play, to be really in the first seat to pull that together. Ardy also had a laser focus on user experience, because where these things tend to fall down is if I've done a registry a decade ago, I start the registry, I have to go find patients to recruit and consent. Then I have to run around collecting all the data. You're talking about usually a year or more before you assemble enough data to do an interesting analysis. And these things have long roads, okay? There's companies like CorEvitas, which recently sold to Thermo Fisher. Okay, one of the classic, do a great job and built a great registry business. But the method by which they collect versus the method by which Ardy connects is a totally different level. Okay. So this space is accelerating really rapidly. And now, a registry for everyone is kind of possible with this infrastructure that Ardy's built. So I see big differentiation in the pipes. I see big differentiation in the user experience. And for me, as somebody who leverages data sets all over the world, I'm looking for two things. I'm looking for the quality of the data and the ability to scale. And in both those cases, SeQSTER has great depth and quality and the ability to do things rapidly at scale, which is why, as somebody who analyzes data, they were an obvious choice to partner with us. So hopefully that makes you comfortable. We can name a few.
No. Hey, look, Brigham, you can run the company. You are hired.
There you go.
No, you nailed it. That's
Thanks,
great.
Brigham. So Ardy, you get to, be clear on terms of Brigham's positioning and what you see in his value proposition and the competitive landscape that he's dealing with. Because I assume, Brigham, I guess the real question is, are you partnering with other firms like Ardy as well, given, you're focused in on the content enablement side a little bit more?
Well, I'll answer that briefly. The answer is yes. I mean, we're trying to build what we call our evidence network. One has any data set that's out there that could be relevant to answer a question to it. But what we're seeing already is that the data sets that are used most frequently on our evidence network are the ones that have the highest quality. And just so you know what I'm talking about, we actually score data, okay? And when you're a user, we'll actually give you a score at the top for the question you ask. Says, how appropriate was this data? Think of it like a credit score. And by the way, you can put it in the show notes. We actually just published a paper on how we do this, and it's getting a lot of interest. Guess what data scores really well for a lot of questions? Registry data. And particularly with SeQSTER, where they're collecting really complete, robust data sets, that becomes the best data to use. So in our world, we want to be with as many data sets as we can, but really the best ones. And firms like SEQSTER play a really important role in this ecosystem around creating that best in class data set, the one that will be most appropriate for most of the questions. And being able to do it at scale means they often have the most patience for certain questions as well. So for us, we love working with platforms like SeqSTER, where we know they're invested in making better data sets, more rich, more diverse, larger. That's a bet we'll make all day. So while we play with many, we let the best win. We're transparent with our users, right? Like, what's the most appropriate data set? And very often it's data like the data SeqSTER creates.
Wow. Ardy, you're right. You need to hire Brigham. So
Yeah,
Ardy,
no, seriously, Brigham is
what are your
amazing. This is
thoughts?
why we partnered with him.
Yeah, so Ardy, what are your thoughts in terms of the business model that Brigham has and some
Yeah.
of the aspects? Because
Before I go into that, I don't think we would have partnered with Atropos if Brigham and I didn't know each other and the experience. I think the experience that Brigham brought to the table was my first interest. And then when I got to learn about, Atropos, I'll tell you, access to an efficient use of real world evidence is a major bottleneck for healthcare leaders looking to optimize care delivery based on real and recent outcomes. And for researchers who want to power early stage and post-market studies in days, not months, that wasn't really possible from the real world evidence generation side till we saw what Atropos Health and Brigham were up to. And until Atropos Health, there has not been a seamless, integrated, and turnkey solution for these leaders that can take advantage of the tsunami of the real world data that we were supplying, because we supply real world data, as you heard from Brigham, at scale. And so, having that turnkey solution and Atropos Health launching the first rapid healthcare evidence generation, leveraging real world patient data with their Geneva OS, along with our SeqSTER OS, and alongside their Chat RWD, which was the first generative AI app incorporating direct chat to database capabilities, was just a clear winner. There's lots of AI companies out there, but there's not that many that actually understand to use certain data pieces in order to generate more value down the line, what I call the last mile. And what I loved about Atropos Health and what our team loved about it is it wasn't just that it's a fit, it was unique. And it was amazing to see how easy SeqSTER OS and Geneva OS and all of their AI capabilities together, can work hand in hand. And being part of that network is fantastic because we're Switzerland at SeqSTER. And what I mean by that is we don't own the data. The patients own the data. The enterprises get consent from the patients to own the data. It worked. Everything that we wanted to do, Brigham and Atropos Health checked all those boxes. And I think it was unique in a number of ways.
You agree? We would be at common customers, whether they be health systems or they'd be life science companies, and they'd be thinking about planning a registry or something like that. And, they're doing that for the purpose of producing evidence and research, right? And we'd be hearing they had two different problems, right? Problem one was, how are we even going to stand this registry up? How are we going to do it quickly? How are we going to do that without creating huge, headcount expense for ourselves and burdening our doctors with gathering documentation? That's problem one. Problem two was then, okay, I've got the registry, but now how am I going to produce studies and evidence out of that quickly without that taking years sometimes to do? So we kept hearing the same signal, and it was so obvious that we can tie that up in one combined offering through this partnership. We're shortening the time to value they get from that investment while offloading hard cost, right? So in the high interest rate environment that we're in, we get to show up to these customers and say, not only am I going to save you money, not only is it, kind of one group to talk to in the partnership, but we're also going to shorten your time to value down by years. Okay. And that is very transformative. So nothing's better than the voice of the customer. And that, I think, is what led us together.
And the big ROI that we save, not just in time, but in expenditures, right? It's a big line item for pharma. It's a big line item for providers. It's a big line item for payers, right?
So,
I mean, we're talking tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of savings. And we can launch a registry with all of the AI tools that Brigham is bringing with our one-click records. And it's just 1 + 1 = 10. It's not 3.
So are the, just out of curiosity, is it mainly the pharma's organizations that your go-to-market? Obviously, there's so many stakeholders to influence, but from a sales point of view, where, Ardy, I'd be curious, are you, focusing your buyers that you need to bring onto the platform to give you the volume that you need? Same thing, Brigham, but if I'm going to put on my chief revenue officer hat now and just say, what is your coverage with, say, the top 3 channels? Is it pharma first? Second is this, third is this, but maybe just give us a bit of context.
Because I could start with that. I would say that, look, you have to look at how our companies were funded and why they were funded. If Coca-Cola funded SEQSTER back in 2016, we would be in corporate wellness, and this whole conversation would be about corporate wellness. The reason why pharma is first is because Takeda was our first investor and led our Series A investment, right? And so that opened up channels to lots of different pharma groups. And like I said, we have 5 out of the top 10. But we're not limited to just pharma, because we're all about bringing high quality, real-time, real-world data, right, Cindy? And so we have large payer clients, such as United Healthcare Group, right, that utilizes SEQSTER on multiple different fronts. We have large providers that utilize us. And then I would say the fourth P is the patient registries that falls in, and I think Brigham would agree with me, either on that provider patient registry or pharma patient registry. And so there isn't a 1, 2, 3, 4 in any order. It just depends where that opportunity is, right? And a lot of those opportunities on patient registries fall into the bucket of segment of pharma, as well as in the provider setting.
To Ardy's point, everybody who is creating a registry across all these stakeholders are doing so that they can generate evidence. Okay. Every single one. And Ardy and I both see more and more registries from all these parties, right? And we're enabling that to be possible through the SEQSTER platform. And then with the combination, we're saying it's not going to be years until you can get high quality evidence. It's now, right? Right as we install, and that shortening of that time to value is significant.
Total game changer.
I'll answer the question directly, Cindy. Look, pharma, okay, runs registries. They do so to advance R&D initiatives and post-approval to help show the value of their products and find populations that benefit. Instead of those being years-long processes, they can now happen nearly instantly. That type of tactical speed to insight helps those companies get approvals faster, design better trials, and when launched, provide better medical evidence for coverage of their products, which gets it to the people who need it. So there is a big push. I mean, the entire pharma industry has been transformed by 21st Century Cures Act from the FDA, and it is shifting their focus in business model evidence, which, by the way, we all want, right? We want more evidence for care. At the same time, I don't want to leave out health systems, because right now, and this is maybe less understood, if you're a large health system, you're probably maintaining, 7 to 10 registries, right? And you do so for a variety of purposes. Sometimes it's research within the institution. Sometimes it's government reporting, okay? And you have to figure out how to fulfill these requirements to keep these registries going. And I'll be honest with you, on the ground, a lot of times, they are asking doctors who are already overworked, okay, to take time out of their day to copy down and store records out of the EMR. That to me is crazy. okay, but they're doing it, and they bear a headcount burden for this. They bear IT and infrastructure costs, right? In many cases, haven't even fully made a cloud conversion. Like from where Ardy and I sit in the worlds we live in, this is bonkers. And by the way, that 710 registries, we're talking 10, 20, 30 million in spend. And you've got health systems right now who are barely turning a profit, if at all. So being able to go to them and say, not only can you meet your requirements, not only will we accelerate these registries and the insights and evidence out of them, we're going to do so by cutting down that P&L. That's a great story. And every health system executive or CFO who stares at that line item and goes, what are we spending this money on? There's a better way. And so we're getting traction on both sides of the house.
And I want to put the cherry on top of that, Cindy, because Brigham had so many amazing points to summarize. And I think the most important point of all is not the speed that we bring data together with our one-click records, but it's the speed that we can actually spin up a full white label registry, as Brigham was talking about, that these health systems need, that these providers need, that the pharma companies need on every single disease that you can think of. You know, last week, our example with Novartis and the Multiple Sclerosis Association Society of America, that's just partnered now with us for the next 3 years. That was a 3-year deal that we signed. Why? Because we're able to churn that registry up in less than a week. And then when we have Atropos Health plugged in, we can churn and bring the real world evidence generation in days, not in months or years, as Brigham was just stating as well. And then on top of that, we're getting something back to patients. Their data. They get to track and monitor their health data, Cindy, the same way that you look at all your financial data when you log into your banking accounts. We've made it that easy on the user interface. It's a digital front door for both patients, researchers, and for the health system, for the pharma company, for whatever that enterprise may be.
I want to make one point about privacy, and we can move on, Cindy. What Ardy just said about the patient empowerment is really important. I think if you interview and survey most patients and said, hey, would you be willing to contribute your data, assuming it's going to be held securely and not be shared with anybody you don't want it to be, but you want to contribute that to maybe add to a study that might help the next patient down the line, right? Overwhelmingly, and there's been many publications on this, patients say, yeah, I'd love to do that, right? Assuming we're using it properly, assuming security is tight, right? And in many cases, it's de-identified as well, right? So I think that's true. It'd be true of me, true of my family, happy to do that. I think the problem we've fallen down on is, okay, A, do we have the tools to empower them to show that that's happening, which SEQSTER enables, like they can see how it's being used. And B, show me the studies that this produced, right? Show me that you're able to pull studies on people like me. And what I hope we're able to do together is start to bring that value all the way back to them, right? With Atropos, we can run a personalized study on patients just like you. Why can't you benefit from what you're contributing to? And we're going to help close the loop on that. The first problem was getting the data together, storing it safely and securely. Second problem was producing the evidence, right? And we're now solving that. So I do think this wave of sort of patient empowerment is coming back around. I think it's somewhat people want to participate in, but they also want to know, hey, show me what's being done and show me how it can benefit patients like me. And I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, that's a really refreshing, Brigham. And yeah, I can't help but think, there's a whole process, as you well know, before I become a patient, right? And, my own health profile and, getting this unique health profile widget that can plug into all the good work that you're doing. There's a whole value chain piece, and the journey starts when I'm born, right? And my DNA profile. So it's hard for me not to think of the whole value chain, but just kudos. I think we've got a really clear sense of what you both are doing and unique value propositions. Let's move to just some of the closing pieces, because I'm always sensitive to time, and you guys have got so much to say, and it's so insightful. And the energy you have as a partnership, I can only imagine the celebration moments that you have so often together. One of the things that our viewers always like to appreciate is what AI methods are you using for market advantage? And, I know you've mentioned large language models. So maybe you're looking through the research studies and, obviously forming insights using natural language processing. But you may be doing predictive analytics as well, which is another form. Sounds like you might be doing some generative AI, which is obviously some different tech, but I did want to get some clarity on the AI approaches that you've seen that work, and also whether you're using any neural networking approaches in your solution sets, and anything
Yeah.
you're comfortable to disclose. And I
Yeah.
recognize that you will only want to disclose what you're comfortable to disclose.
No,
Brigham, do you want to go
disclose-
first?
Yeah, we disclosed plenty. So already referenced it earlier. We launched an application called Chat RWD. This is an LLM copilot that lets any user, clinician, researcher ask a question in free text, and they'll receive a brand new study run on the attributes of patients they describe, produced in under 3 minutes. It's really exciting automation. That takes, our current process was about a day, which is already way faster than anything else, down to minutes. And one of the findings we have from our beta release, we had 75 users in it. People ask 10 to 20 times more questions using Chat RWD. So this explosion in questions that people have, curiosity and intent. And I think all that's great. I want to make a really important point here, though. Our core technology, Geneva, which was developed originally in Stanford, it's not magic AI. Okay, it's heavy-duty automation using observational research techniques. And this is a really important point. My co-founder, Nigam Shah, within Stanford, is the chief data scientist there. He developed this under the green button. And he was also developing predictive algorithms at the same time, like sepsis algorithms within Stanford. So I'd asked him early on, I was like, well, why did you do both? Like, what's the difference? And he said, well, imagine it this way. You're a physician at the point of care, you're looking at your EMR, and you get a prediction that pops up. It says there's a 92% chance that this patient's at risk of sepsis. Okay, it's just a number. It's a probability. That's really good to know. Okay, and maybe I will pay some closer attention there. But that's not the same as running a study that could go through the FDA. Okay, that says, and for this patient, comparing their peers, you should do A instead of B on statistical basis. Okay. That second one is how medicine actually works. If you're going to throw a bunch of probabilities at doctors to nudge them in the direction of doing X and Y, I think that's great. I think there's benefit to that, and I think people will use it. It's not the same as evidence, okay? And why I bring this up is that we're in the middle of this AI and LLM wave. I'm very, very concerned about the accuracy and bias of those algorithms. And I frankly think this is playing out. On the LLM front, there was a recent publication by James Zhu out of Stanford that showed as high as a 30% hallucination and error rate. Now, let me just say, that's probably okay if we're talking about administrative tasks and it makes things a little faster, like, hey, I want to be able to summarize a patient history. It's okay if it's a little wrong, if it gets it mostly right. I'm not changing treatment based on that. I'm just improving my administrative day. And I think LLMs for the use of, helping doctors save some time, maybe helping with administrative tasks, that's just fine. And so at the same time, when we said, well, we're going to launch an LLM, I had to be sure that we weren't going to introduce a hallucination rate into what we do. No LLM that we use touches healthcare data. Okay.
Got it.
So we're getting ready to publish it.
Yeah, so this is really an important point because, what you're summarizing is the acute need to have valid evidence to make an informed decision, and the fact that we've got a lot of erroneous tools, I won't go into naming them, that are now, it's not just the prediction, but it's the clarity around the outcome. But if it's not linked to evidence-based studies, that we are also putting at risk health information as a result of some of the
For sure.
My PhD is in clinical pharmacology. Okay, most people with my degree go on to work at the FDA. My department at Tufts I came out of was originally founded by Lois Lasagna, who discovered the placebo effect and testified in the fen-phen trials. I grew up in that community that looks at how we approach actual evidence for care with high statistical rigor. It's a really important topic to me, right? And, I said the other day, Janet Woodcock, who's been at the FDA for 30, 40 years, retired about a month ago. She's an absolute hero, in my opinion, and is somebody who's held the line on what are the standards for evidence when we're deciding about introducing new molecules or different treatments, different devices into patient care. And fundamentally, this AI wave, it's like Janet's been retired for a month. We forgot how to do base statistics. Like probabilities that come out of AI prediction are incredibly valuable for directing attention or directing existing processes. They are not evidence for new care, period, full stop. And
Yes,
we're going to publish them.
Yeah, for sure, Brigham, and really, I want to make sure we bring in Ardy's voice on this point. It strikes me that you both should go and have a call with Sam Altman at OpenAI, because obviously with the generative AI and the enterprise AI world, and people asking health-related questions, your linkages to the evidence side and making sure that the right data is flowing is an opportunity as people continue to seek
Let me
health
make one
related,
point here on this,
information.
Cindy. I saw a dashboard the other day that somebody showed me, a clinician, looking at their EMR. Pop up in the bottom right, there was a chart, and the chart said for patients like this, 80% of the time they receive treatment A, 20% of the time they receive treatment B. And probably useful intelligence to know. Probably okay. Then next to that, it said for the people on treatment A, 60-day mortality was X, and for the people on treatment B, 60-day mortality was Y. Seems pretty benign, and a doctor might look at that not knowing and go, okay, well, that looks like treatment A is better. Okay. Nobody did statistical comparison or propensity matching between the populations. So the reason the mortality might have been worse on treatment B is maybe all those patients were older and sicker. Okay. But the doctor's not being shown that. I think stuff like that borders on dangerous. Okay. And I think that's where regulation is going to come in. That's where we are holding a firm line on quality and transparency and method. Because fundamentally, you can use an LM to do automation or make nudges. You can use AI to show probability. But when you start telling a doctor that this drug is better than this drug, and you have not done high quality methodology associated with observational research, that's not okay, in my opinion. So I think we're going to see this play out this year.
Yeah, I sure hope so. We're certainly behind the legislations all being ratified, right? There's good drafts underway, though. Ardy, any thoughts that you want to share here? We've certainly heard Brigham's passion, and he's so right. And there's a lot of, I'd say, lack of knowledge on the risks. Is probably how I'd net it out.
Yeah, there's a couple. I think, look, like I said, AI is meaningless unless you have really good quality data. But at SEQSTER, we do utilize natural language processing, NLPs, to extract meaningful information from the clinical notes, because we get all the doctor's notes, the clinical notes with our one-click records. We get patient feedback and medical records where we can overlay that information. This approach aids to improving clinical data management and patient care coordination. This is what we've seen with, our customers. And I would say furthermore, SEQSTER employs large language models, LLMs, to interpret and summarize complex medical texts, such as research papers and clinical trial reports. And that's assisting, healthcare professionals in staying informed about the latest developments. But, as these things within artificial intelligence just get, I would say, more complicated and more powerful, I echo exactly what Brigham says. Within healthcare, you have to be very careful how and where the data is coming from. Because if it's self-reported data and someone is running some sort of, algorithm on that, it's not as accurate if it's coming directly from chain of custody of data from that Allscripts EMR, from that Epic EMR, from that McKesson EMR. And that's what we really focus on. We focus on bringing the data from the source and then all the rest, whether it's NLPs, LLMs, AI, get layered in. That's a whole different.
By the way, great use of LLM right there, right? Let's process text. That's great at that, frankly.
Exactly.
Right. And at the same time, the data feed that I'm seeing from Ardy allows us to do the data quality scoring on the way in, right? So I can show him doing an LLM or NLP on notes. How much does that improve the quality of this data, right? So the key is transparency in the middle of that. Like, we stand on that and we show it for every analysis. It also helps me go back to Ardy and say, hey, you're scoring really well on these types of questions, not as well on these. Here's how you might improve.
And it's a quality check. It's like a quality check for us when Brigham does this, right? And it's like it's like full circle, half circle, full circle, half circle. It's amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of synergies. I just want to kind of move to the last point. And
we're not excited, Cindy, at all.
No,
we're just
no,
solving healthcare, saving the
No,
world, but we're not excited.
Yeah, you are both so passionate. I think, first of all, not everybody, as we know in this world, is leading by example. You've set some very clear value propositions for your corporations in the sense of the transparency, the ethicalness, but also the vigilance that you have in understanding the data, the quality, the security. But I also want to recognize you understand the risks and the data bias implications. You're passionate and concerned, and you're absolutely right. And I really hope your voices are going up into the legislative processes while people are rationalizing what do we do with generative AI in relationship to healthcare, and we've got guidelines, but the specific use cases of thou shalt not do, like the EU has taken, right? They've been very clear about the use cases, and we need to get much more definitive. So I echo your voice and just want to acknowledge them. We need to close out, and I just have one more question for each of you, and we'll maybe try and keep it a little bit briefer if we can. Ardy, top lesson that you've learned as an entrepreneur, and Brigham, the top one as well. I know this is something our viewers want, because a lot of our viewers are entrepreneurs at different stages in their ventures. But your thoughts there of the lessons that you've learned.
Yeah.
Short.
Look, over the last 8 years at SEQSTER, it's been very painful. If you can't see it on my face, you can hear it in my voice. I lose my voice all the time. We've learned that you have to adapt quickly, Cindy. We've learned that you have to have resilience. And the most important part is value the journey. What we are doing is incredibly difficult. And it takes, as you said, a ton of energy and talent. Learning from our failures, obviously, embracing the uncertainty and continuously evolving are key lessons we've learned along the way. And having that mission before the vision has always been paramount for me and for my company. Put the patient at the center. It starts from there. Let them control their data, own their data, and do good and well, and things will happen.
Those are all
great.
I would bullet it as 3 things adjacent to that. Chase something big. Okay. Those are things worth doing. And you're gonna want to chase something big and important in the trenches as you do this. 2, be adaptive. Already hit this. You need to adapt. Different market environments, the evolution of your product. Do not wait. Listen to that voice to adapt when you need to, and be relentless. Like, that's what it takes. And if anybody tells you otherwise, they don't know what they're talking about. This is hard work.
This is exactly why we partnered, because Brigham and I have the same DNA. We're, brothers from other mothers.
Absolutely.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, you didn't comment on the investors, the VCs being critical to growth. There can be the good, bad, and the ugly, but what are your thoughts there, maybe to close out in terms of investment capital and picking the right partners? Having a former VC, that was one thing I learned, is you got to really be thoughtful about who comes to the table and ensuring that you've got the wisdom to say no. But thoughts there? I think people always want to know that angle.
I mean, venture capitalists or investors, they have to take a thoughtful view of, what things to get behind. They want to chase big ideas, of course, but, are also practical. To your point, we evaluate it first through the lens of fit. Our existing investors include folks like Emerson Collective and Briar Capital, both with a very long view. They're down to build something big. When we take on additional investors, that's a big view for us. And it's not always the price, it's the fit. Are you here to build the thing we're trying to build? And, good news is there's a lot of great investors out there looking to do great things. And we find it to be a strong community.
Thanks, Brigham. Ardy?
I'm always looking for wartime investors. And I'll tell you why. Because when things are great, you don't really need an investor. You need an investor when things are bad. And what I've learned through the journey is who's going to step up and support you when you're in the trenches and things are not looking good. And you are trying to build, you're trying to grow, you're trying to scale, you're trying to get that new customer. So wartime investors have a particular scent for me. And I've been more right than wrong. Maybe it's because I'm lucky and I just try to be at every single conference that you can be. So I've had more contact with folks, but I love finding that wartime investor that's going to be behind you and also in front of you going into battle, no matter what the situation is.
Yeah, a real partner, right? Thank you so much, Ardy. Thank you so much, Brigham. I'll turn things over to Jen for closing comments, and just I know our viewers are leaving very inspired about your story, the value contribution, and the clarity you have for, really improving our realities for patient care with, really good clinical research that has the efficacy that we need to, and to really raise the awareness of the generative AI risks that we have in the market. So thank you for bringing all of these thoughts to
Thank you,
us.
Cindy.
Thank you so much for having us. I learned so much being on here.
Yeah, thanks again to Brigham and Ardy. Pleasure to connect and chat together. And thank you to our viewers for joining us on the Predictive World series by SalesChoice. I invite our listeners again to join us at saleschoice.com/resources, where we have many years of trove of leadership content, and join us next time.